Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Alpha Amplified podcast. I'm accompanied by two special guests today, Alex and Alexis.
Hey guys.
Hey guys, I'm Alex.
Today, we're going to talk about supply chain and their career goals and their motivators. And I'm excited to start off with the first question. What got you into supply chain?
Sure, I'll tackle this one. So, what originally got me into supply chain was, well, first I was introduced through B-Star. They show off different clubs and different careers and majors that you could go into. But what originally grasped me about supply chain was just the how much it calculated the business aspect of the world or the industry. And I just like the fact of the matter that you could go from the front end of the product and making the product all the way to the end of delivering it to the front door of a customer. And I think in reality, that is what supply chain is, and that's what interests me.
For me, I would say that it kind of happened through my academic advisor. I told her once I was not decided between accounting or supply chain.
Interesting.
I told her I was leaning more towards supply chain, but I just never could make that decision. So after our advising, we kind of like just dealt with it. She's like, we should put you here, and if you feel like it's not a right fit afterwards, we can remove it. And long story short, I kind of just stick with it. So supply chain
Okay.
is very cool. So I'm happy with that.
Tell me more of your perspective on supply chain. What do you think supply chain is for you?
Alex, if you let me take this one.
Yeah, I was ready, but you were like, so
Layman terms will tell you that supply chain is broken up into five parts, which is planning, sourcing, producing, delivering, and returning. But for me, I think supply chain is the ability to create a product, to source a product, and to be able to deliver it. I mean, it really is just that simple. I mean, well, there is more complicated aspects towards it, but
Mhm.
it's the idea of getting a product to consumer.
Hmm.
I think my
Mhm.
definition for well, that's actually inaccurate. Like, there's a lot of departments within it. So if you're, I know Alexis missed a couple, like procurement. There's like different departments. So I guess I want to
Mm.
go in a little deep into it. The first procurement, demand planning, fulfillment, business and logistics, transportation, operations, and like I'm pretty sure I'm missing one more. But if you think about it, remind me.
I think
And
logistics.
I mentioned that already.
Oh.
Well, sorry guys for the supply chain majors, but definitely keep that out. And one more thing about it is for me it's innovation. I guess it's like, so many things changing within the field as well, and it's like the backbone of your, it's like insights. You could do so much impact on it, like,
Mm.
believe it or not, you have so much power within the supply chain field to impact the company. It's just yours for the taking. So that's what my definition is.
I know you. Oh, you want to go?
Well, just one thing I will like to say is that also they recently just added returns, so there's always more aspects of supply chain that's continuously being added towards it. So
Mhm.
it's, again, not to reiterate what's already been said, but it is growing and there is opportunities out there to succeed in this
So
industry.
one message you guys get from this podcast: it's growing.
It's
That's
growing.
it.
It's growing.
Supply chain's growing. It's improving. It's getting
I
out
do
there.
want to ask one question that just came up to my mind. Are there any skills? I know you mentioned soft skills, but what other specific skills you see that makes you excel within the career or in like an internship?
The ability to multitask, I think that's
Oh,
definitely going to be
why is that?
well, as a supply chain major, you have to be able to manage a team. You know what I mean? You have to be
Mm-hmm.
able to, like Alex was saying, be able to source and procure, but at the end of the day, be able to deliver. So
Oh.
you have to be able to handle those multiple areas. You have to be handle managing a team that's one gonna, not to repeat it, but source it,
Mm-hmm.
create it, deliver it, return it. Those are all different fields in supply chain that if you're not being able to juggle that, then it's going to be a difficult time for you. I think that's where multitasking really going to come in.
I think I agree with him on this one.
Yeah, multitasking.
Yes.
Have you multitasked in your internship or?
Um, Essentially, there's a lot of things going on within internships. Like, you are tasked with doing so many things, like meetings, and it's just
Okay.
about time management as well within that
Mm,
multitasking. Just
okay.
make sure that you can prioritize what's needed, as well as what you can do at that time. Sometimes you know that there's a project that you have to deliver, or a task from, I guess, your analysts who are asking you to do that and support. You got to submit that in time. So basically, if you have a meeting and it's optional, you kind of just have to make those calls. So it's a lot of,
Mm,
intuition.
yeah.
And for recent, or I would say for new students coming into Rutgers, if you do want to excel in supply chain, I will say familiarize yourself with the systems and softwares that are in supply chain, Oracle, Wave. Um, Alex, I don't know if you have any other ones.
SAP.
SAP.
I know Salesforce works a little bit. I worked with it at my previous co-op. So
You'll learn it. You'll be able to have firsthand experience in your internships. But if you could, before you had like get into an internship, if you could familiarize yourself with those softwares, you'll exceed much more than anybody who just learns it the first time at an internship.
Apart from softwares, what certifications do you have or do you need to make yourself stand out?
Certification. So I actually just have a more like of a Bloomberg Market Concepts
Okay.
certification. I guess the Excel one's the traditional ones. You always want to work with Excel. So even in supply chain, if you're not good in Excel, you might want to learn because you're still going to use it.
Mhm.
So that's one of the shortcuts. Basically, I know Wall Street Prep's pretty good at that,
Mm.
and maybe a little coding. It kind of helped. I know in my previous
Interesting.
co-op, I did a hackathon, and
Oh.
we did like it's called a no to low code, and basically we had a platform that tracked carbon emissions, like how we could use the company's ERP system, like SAP, to track it in the app and make it more user friendly to basically benchmark it and make it more aesthetically pleasing. So even
pretty
then, it was
cool.
itself was pretty challenging. I
Mm.
remember struggling on that for like a couple of 3 days. It was like just a 3-day competition. And it was no to low code, but
Mhm.
even the little coding was quite difficult. So yeah, try to
Oh.
learn how to code.
Interesting.
Also, one thing that could help you with certification is getting your Six Sigma belt, getting
Oh,
your green
yes.
belt.
That's what I was gonna
That's
Yeah.
definitely,
touch
that's
up
definitely
on.
gonna help you
Yeah.
out. I think it's the sooner you could get it, this sooner the better. So I'm trying right now to grab my green belt, but I think if students want to go for it, they should.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
then along with that, there's like one that's more under. Now I can't think of the undergraduate one, but like
Mhm.
at as a professional level, you could get the PMP, project management.
Yes.
What's the other P? Project management,
There's project.
professional. We'll go with professionals. So
Okay.
yes, that's the ones you want to keep out.
Okay.
Look out
And since you're an alpha, right? How has alpha helped you with your career and accelerating it?
for. You stared at me. So your question was like, why? How did Alpha help me in my career or supply
Right,
chain?
yeah. Mhm.
Okay, so I would say Alpha has really been good at installing the foundations, I guess you could say,
Yeah.
of your resume, your interpersonal skills, like those soft skills that you ask, like feeling comfortable with yourself and gaining that confidence,
Okay.
particularly to present yourself in the corporate world or anywhere where you go. So I think that's a lot of your presentation skills, and those soft skills are very valuable. So that's what Alpha has done for me.
Mm.
And just to add on to that of what Alex said, I think also for me too, it just opened more doors to more possibilities, things
Mm.
that I wouldn't be able to attain if I wasn't in already Alpha or part of an organization. So being able to have those doors open is a great help for any college student.
Mm. And let's talk more about your internship experience and any type of experience you've got with supply chain.
Well, for me, the experience I got through my internship was just having firsthand the ability to work on a project,
Okay.
to be able to go from having a process already or a system in place and then being able to identify bottlenecks and be able to address those bottlenecks and fix that. I think that's really what's going to be able to help you grow. And for me, that's what I take forward in any other internship or any other job opening, just what I learned through my past internships.
What is bottleneck?
It's just the ability to identify where a process slows down or a process,
Mm.
what I want to say, converges, and
Okay.
you could identify, what's making this process so slow. How can I make it more effective, or how can I improve that process?
Interesting. Dang. Damn, you should have said that a long time ago.
Okay. So for my internship experience, I have had two previously. So a little bit, I was into operations. So warehousing. So I seen the inside of a warehouse. Was the first experience, and I've had another one where it's a corporate on the warehousing team. So I've seen a little bit of both. How we can move the system internally, like for instance at the corporate level, like putting in the numbers in the computer, sitting from a
Okay.
desk. Then I also seen it from the warehousing where like it's manual labor. You got to move it, hit quota numbers. But what I like about that particularly is that supply chain is it's a growing field. It's been here for a while now, but it's just getting the reputation it deserves. And
Okay.
that constant innovation and basically that adaptability that you need in this field is what kind of motivates me. And it's always something new. There's nothing repetitive. There's always something new on your day-to-day basis. So that's what
Mm.
kind of excites me. And that's kind of going back to your point, why I
Mhm.
chose supply chain.
Okay. And would you say supply chain is relatively new in the field or?
Mm,
Well, I'll take that one. I think it is. It's not new in the sense of it's been here. This is something that's always been attached to business. But what is new is like the title that's been placed on it.
No, yeah, I agree. Like it's new. It's not new. I'm sorry, it's not new. I think it's just never been acknowledged. So
Interesting.
we had COVID, and COVID kind of what they labeled it supply chain, and that's when people kind of noticed what it was and the impact it has.
Hmm.
I had a professor once tell me that supply chain is very important, believe it or not. Like you can't market a product that's not made through supply chain. You can't look into the
Interesting.
financials if there's no product. So
Hmm.
supply chain is essentially your foundation for any business.
Not to name drop, but was that Professor Conan?
No, not
Oh.
necessarily.
He's the best though. He's the
He
best.
is.
He actually got me into like interested in supply chain as well.
Shout
So
out to Professor Conan.
shout out to Professor Horn. Um, and I kind of want to talk about or touch upon like the challenges.
Mhm.
Like if you had an internship, what were the challenges within that, or maybe even if other challenges that revolve around supply chain?
So some of my challenges, I guess, like I've had a little bit of distinctive things. So for my internship in the warehouse, for me, the challenges within supply chain was kind of still basic your confidence and how to manage a team. So
Hmm.
this is like more like your interpersonal skills, like I mentioned. These don't go far, and that's how Alpha's helped me. So feeling comfortable with leading a team, that's where I kind of saw and understanding what SKU numbers were. Like you're
Mm.
dealing with these type of, I guess, terminology that's kind of you see in classes. So like your FOB points and all that, what
Right.
later
Yeah.
on goes into. If for those who don't know FOB points, real quick, is essentially like who's in charge of when you export certain products from your
Right
transportation.
on board.
Yeah,
Is
right on
it?
board. I guess that's
Is
right.
it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you tested
Ah.
me. Right on board. So like, who's in charge? Like when you
Mhm.
order something on UPS, like if you
Okay.
who's in charge of that? The company
Hmm.
who's sending it to you, or you're telling the consumer has liability over that. So that terminology, and as well for my corporate setting internship, was more on like the ERP systems, like SAP. So for ERP is Enterprise Resourcing Planning. So
Hmm.
SAP is basically like gathers all the functions of the business all into one. So that's a very good skill for all those supply chain majors out there,
Hmm.
and you'll just get it on the job. So just feeling confident asking questions, but that could in itself be a challenge.
Interesting.
Espera, whenever you're talking, you
Oh,
have
sorry.
the word, so like take smaller breaths like fire. I
Okay, we'll work on it.
no. Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I can hear it.
Let me
Maybe
back up.
like
Maybe.
yeah, I think you should back
Yeah.
up.
But just to add to what Alex was saying, I think it's just exposure to the different ERGs that you're gonna be exposed to at your internship. For me, it was Oracle and Wave. We had the ability to, for our truck drivers, was managed through our Wave system. It was to be able to see how close the truck driver's route was to their destination
Hmm.
and just make it more, just optimize that so that they don't have to go too out of their way and they could hit all the routes at the same time. But just the exposure, just gaining new concepts and new understanding of those concepts, I think that's what really is going to be the biggest challenge in anybody's in their internship.
Um, Another question I have is, do you think technology is like taking away the, supply chain, you know, idea or like major jobs?
Personally, for me, I think no. My internship was last year, and they were implementing new systems. They're implementing
Okay.
new technology. I think now with AI coming out, it's gonna be a big improvement to supply chain with
Interesting,
truck
okay.
drivers. I think they're coming out with systems where no longer truck drivers have to look at the actual screen inside their truck. They're being able to take their technology with them, their phones, and see what
Oh,
new
okay.
alerts come up. So I think that's gonna be a big, um, have a big splash in the industry.
Okay.
I don't think technology is really going to impact too much supply chain. I think it's going to be more of an asset to it. There's still so many areas that within supply chain, sustainability where everything's going on.
Right.
Supply chain's a big factor into that because,
Mhm.
in a way, supply chain goes into a lot of departments like business and logistics and transportation, which is emissions, right? Your trucking and your air travel. So those are things that I think technology could really help. But
Mhm.
believe it or not, we're still like far away from our net zero objectives, like as a whole, like the Paris Agreement. So yeah.
Yeah.
And even just to add on to that too as well, I think me and Alex really touched on the end point of supply chain, of the delivery and I even say probably the return as well. But also technology helps improve the beginning process of supply chain and the planning, the forecasting,
Mhm.
or sourcing your materials. So I think that's also just going to be a really big help for anybody going into supply
Yeah.
chain.
And the only reason why I asked that because I've seen like drones like take
Okay.
place and like them actually delivering, these packages and usually what truck drivers would do. But do you think that seems very innovative or maybe it it just doesn't work?
You wanna take that one?
Yeah, I might be a little like off with this one, but I
Yeah.
would say my take on that is what I've seen for drones. I personally have never worked with drones. I was in a warehouse. Didn't see it.
Okay.
So I think those are more like for small packages
Yeah.
or any small orders, or like, you're not moving things in bulk. Supply chain sometimes is moving in bulk. So like I said, drones is what your question was, like the technology and all that, or the
Yeah.
drones.
Yeah.
I don't think it's much of an impact on that.
I think drones are definitely a big help. It's one aspect
Mm.
of how we're gonna improve and make it more effective the process. But at the end of the day, I think it's more than just drones. It's more of like how can we already use how can we use technology that we already have in our systems, but how can we improve that? How can we make it so where now truck drivers don't have to, like I said, get out of their truck? How can we help them get to their delivery spot? How can we make make their lives more easier? And
Okay.
if drones do help them make their lives helps make truck drivers' lives more easier, then for all benefit, we're all for it. But at the end of the day, we don't want to stop there. Growth
Okay.
is a breath.
That's cool. And I guess the last question: what is one piece of advice you would give to a student watching or anybody watching that is interested in, supply chain, possibly, or maybe, is majoring in it and feels kind of lost?
Give me a minute to think on that. I just want to make sure.
I would say just don't be afraid. There's definitely gonna be new concepts you're gonna learn, but I think in any field there's gonna be new concepts to learn. Just have an open mind about it. Be willing to learn. Be willing to engage and take initiative. I think in this industry, you're gonna have a lot of aspects. You're gonna have a lot of areas in supply chain where it's gonna be new to you. But
Mm.
once you figure out where you really want to go and where you want to settle down, I think that's gonna be help you so much in your long run.
I would say my piece of advice for anyone who's interested in supply chain: if it's something that interests you, go for it. I don't think there's anything wrong with the field. It's growing. And particularly, you're going to have so many transferable skills into like forecasting. You're still going to do modeling if you're deciding between finance or any other majors here at Rutgers. So just go for it. Like a little bit aligning with Alexis. Just don't be afraid to take risks. And just that's my best piece of advice.
And to even just say on top of that, you'll see like how Alex was saying, it's growing. There's so many. If you look now in the modern news, there's so many instances where supply chain has been stalling. Recently now with COVID, you'll see the whole situation where getting out the vaccines, and you have the situation now where the big shipment truck boat couldn't get through the canal. But you're even seeing it now with how hard it is to get foreign products over to the United States and vice versa. So I think it's just we see the opportunity for supply chain, and I think it's more now where we need and more specialists in it. So I think people who are interested in it, I think they should go for it.
This is actually really enlightening to me because I want to get, into supply chain possibly. And this is giving me kind of like the hope.
I think you should. The major is really good. Specifically at Rutgers, they offer a lot of resources for supply chain majors.
Hmm.
And it's at the end of the day, it's the backbone of every industry. You're gonna hear that from any supply chain major.
Heard from
It's-
Cohen.
You're never.
Yeah.
It's never not gonna be useful. So don't fear that you're never gonna find an opportunity out there. It's out there. You just have to go look for it. You have to grab it, and you're gonna have to want it.
Yeah. And do you think it's a little bit more difficult to, as a supply chain major to obtain that internship or attain that job compared to other majors?
I would say not necessarily. I think it's everything in order to get an internship or experience is kind of difficult in itself.
Okay.
But I think it's reasonable within boundaries. I know Rutgers sets you up really well for that. I've had my 2 experiences through Rutgers platforms as well as
Okay.
Alpha. So just doing a good combination of both will allow you to excel in those opportunities.
Love that. Yeah.
I don't know that.
So yeah, thank you so much for tuning into this episode, and thank you guys for being here.
Thank you for having us, Silva.
Thank you for having us,
No
Selva.
problem. Shameless plug.
Yeah, definitely. If you guys have any questions for supply chain or just in general are curious about anything, please follow us on LinkedIn. My name's Alexis Beto.
My name's Alexander.
Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and fill out the podcast interest form if you're interested in just being in the podcast. Until next time, guys. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Okay, 3, 2, 1.
Thank you guys for tuning into this episode, and thank you guys for having me.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Put your phone away.
Oh my gosh, please turn that off.
If you guys want to follow us on LinkedIn, my name is Alexis Beto.
My name is Alexander Sanchez.
We'll be to help you out with any questions you have for supply chain. So please hit us our way.
And like, subscribe, and fill out the new
Podcast interest form.